Elliot Eastman wanted a life of adventure outside the United States, but instead he ended up dead. Elliot grew up in a small town in Vermont. After graduating from college in New York, he returned home and worked as a DoorDash and Uber driver. By 2020, he was restless. He began talking about his dream of leaving behind his peaceful, predictable life in America to chase a bigger adventure. He moved to the Philippines, where he settled in a coastal fishing town in Subabuco, Zamboanga del Norte. However, that became his biggest mistake. This region is one of the most dangerous in the country. Even travel advisories warn foreigners not to visit, let alone live there. At first, things seemed nice. Elliot met and fell in love with a local woman named Karisha. They married and began building a life together. He continued to run his small YouTube channel, filming every day, posting casual vlogs, and regularly live streaming to interact with his audience. He even rented an apartment and opened a grocery store. But Elliot had a habit of oversharing online. During live streams, he often talked about how much money he had, how much he spent, or how much he lent to others. These updates drew unwanted attention. The more he shared, the less safe he became. Soon now, cracks began to show. Locals started harassing him. He sometimes had to hide while walking with his wife. His videos began to reflect his restlessness. His cheerful tone turned distant and regretful as he admitted to feeling unsafe. And things worsened when thieves broke into his store and stole all his earnings from the previous day. In that moment, he knew his life was at greater risk and he needed to get out. In what would be his final live stream, a viewer asked if he was enjoying life in the Philippines. He responded very coldly, "There are some parts I like about it. There are some parts I don't." Just 2 hours later, tragedy struck. On October 17th, 2024, Elliot was with his wife and her family when 3 armed policemen barged in. They ordered him to come with them, but Elliot felt like something was wrong. And his instincts were right. The men weren't police officers. They were kidnappers. When Elliot resisted, they shot him in the leg and abdomen, and his wife screamed in horror. Bleeding, he was dragged into a motorized boat and taken out to sea. News of the kidnapping spread quickly. Authorities soon identified and arrested 3 suspects. The men later confessed that Elliot had died on the boat, and his body was dumped into the ocean. Investigators believe the suspects were part of a larger criminal network, and to this day, Elliot Eastman's body has never been found. Dan Danili's mission was to live the best life possible, eating what he termed healthy food while strangely harassing women. On YouTube, he filmed himself wandering the streets of Los Angeles, aggressively approaching young women and sometimes literally chasing them around. In one video, he approached a girl to ask if she was of legal age. When she replied she wasn't, he backed off but kept screaming, "I love you. Happy New Year," as she walked away. Strangely, for all of his rejections, he had a theory. He thought that the United States was too safe with the police everywhere. Perhaps if it were less secure, he would have better luck at accosting women because to him, consent was a myth. He believed that people in the United States were only hostile toward him because they had a poor diet. If they followed his diet suggestions, they'd be more receptive regardless of his approach. Therefore, in 2016, he began planning to move to the Philippines. According to him, Filipino women had a better diet and he'd be able to sleep with tons of them. However, his plan was short-lived. In 2017, he was arrested and convicted of harassment. He chose to represent himself in court, rejected plea deals, and insisted that his behavior was harmless free expression. Dear God, despite his defense, the jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to 36 months of probation, 100 days in jail, and required to register as a sex offender under Megan's Law. This ruling meant that his filming and movements were now tightly controlled. He tried to continue filming his healthy diet videos, but he had been permanently tarnished. Eventually, Danili returned to his hometown in North California, but his videos are still scattered on the internet. David G. Sardis. David G. Artisan waste name of a mysterious YouTube channel that uploaded nearly 8,000 videos. In just a single year, each clip was only a few minutes long, usually showing a TV SHOW like Wheel of Fortune. You never saw the person filming and never heard them move or breathe. It was only feastedy recording of a television screen. The uploads were relentless. At a minimum, there were 11 new clips every single day. No commentary, no editing, just titles with the show's name and the broadcast date. But over time, something changed. The camera angle and sound revealed that David was no longer filming from home. He was in a hospital with each new upload. The video got shakier until one day the upload suddenly stopped. By then, Reddit users had started to notice the strange channel. They investigated and in their digging discovered an obituary in the Ottawa Citizen for a man named David Glenn Sargeisen who died in 2019. Their realization hit hard. The videos had ended because David himself had passed away, and now his endless recordings serve as the final remnants of his life. Briscoe Park, the description simply states, "Don't ask, just watch." At first glance, it looked like nothing, just random tapes with numbers as titles. But a closer look revealed something much darker hidden in these videos. Briscoe Park's first upload, titled Tape 4, showed an abandoned barn standing in the middle of a field. It was pitch dark with only the harsh beam of the camera's light cutting through shadows. There was no commentary and no edits, just the raw sounds of the night. As the cameraman moved deeper into the barn, a rusty barrel came into view. For a few seconds, a strange code flashed across the screen. Curious viewers Googled it, only to find it was linked to the Stargate Project, a reality program that once researched psychic spying. That was when people stopped seeing the channel as random footage and started treating it like a puzzle. More videos followed, all in abandoned and odd locations. But instead of the usual tape numbering format, the author skipped the number 13. Now, whether it was intentional or not, viewers cowed and ignorant. Therefore, the theories began. Some believed the tapes were hidden messages, maybe even tied to government experiments or secret projects. Others noted that the cameraman was never alone and was followed by someone, or something lurking in the shadows. Moreover, in some video descriptions, the uploader noted whether a location had disturbances detected or if follow-ups were required. But just as quickly as the channel appeared, the uploads began to slow down. There was no explanation, and whatever questions viewers might have, they'd already been warned. Don't ask. Friend Maria, what happens when your girlfriend isn't really yours, but anyone's for just $5.95 a month? YouTuber Chris Batt, known online as Dr. Slap, but just 5 days later, he would be. Torchov, better known as Appeter, was a Norwegian creator who gained fame for his bizarre yet endearing stunts. He dive into frozen lakes, walk barefoot in the snow, and skate across thin ice, always with a smile on his face. His channel radiated joy and the spirit of living life to the fullest. But his existence meant he was constantly gambling with danger, and it was only a matter of time before his luck ran out. In November 2021, while filming a daredevil walk on the Jacobs Dam in Kongsberg, Heffel threw a massive crack in the ice, but this time, he couldn't get out. After a while underwater, divers pulled him from the lake and rushed him to a hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead a day later. Fans were devastated. Just days before he had posted his annual birthday video, reassuring his fans of his safety. He filmed himself bathing outside and drinking vodka with the number 57 written on his forehead. Today, Appeter's channel remains active and is flooded with comments from fans who celebrate his humor. While mourning the irony of his final video, Trevor Jacob, former Olympian and YouTuber Trevor Jacobs, set up his cameras to film a flight vlog. Instead, he filmed a federal crime. In November 2021, Trevor took off from Lump alone in his light aircraft, claiming he was flying to Mammoth Mountain to spread the ashes of his friend Johnny Strange, who had died 6 years earlier. Suddenly, the engine stopped running, but instead of trying to restart it, contacting air traffic control, or initiating a forced landing, Trevor bolted out. Strangely, he was already wearing a bulky skydiving parachute. He abandoned the aircraft, parachuted to the ground, and suffered only minor injuries, still holding his selfie stick. Trevor walked back to the crash site to retrieve his camera before hiking out, later insisting the engine had failed. Rescuers didn't find him until late that night. 2 days later, the National Transportation Safety Board opened an investigation, ordering Trevor to share the footage and preserve the wreckage. Despite repeatedly hiking to the site to recover his cameras, Trevor claimed he couldn't remember where the wreckage was located. A month after the crash, he posted a 13-minute YouTube video titled, "I Crashed My Plane." It pulled in millions of views. At first glance, he seemed like a brave pilot who did what he needed to survive. However, when authorities looked closer, they uncovered a crime. In 2022, the Federal Aviation Administration disclosed damning details. Trevor had opened the cabin door before the engine failure, made no attempt to restart the engine, and personally recovered the cameras without oversight. This all led the FAA to conclude that he had abandoned the aircraft solely to film the crash. Eventually, Trevor admitted to filing a false accident report and lying to FAA investigators by claiming parachuted only because the engine had failed. As for the wreckage, he confessed that on December 10, 2021, he used a helicopter to airlift the remains to Rancho Cisco. From there, loaded the plane onto a truck, moved it to a hangar at Lampal Airport, disassembled it, and scattered its components across various locations over several days. He admitted that his motive was to gain notoriety and earn commissions from the Ridge, a wallet company that sponsored the video. On December 4, 2023, Trevor Jacob was sentenced to 6 months in federal prison. He has since been released and continues to upload YouTube videos, but now he struggles to attract views. Catch me killer, play my game, solve my puzzles, and I lead you to 16 bodies, one by one. That's not what you expect to hear when you click on a YouTube video. However, in 2009, a mysterious user uploaded a killing game that seemed to play with people's worst fears and their hopes of finding missing loved ones. The first Catch Me Killer video showed a man with a blurred face and distorted voice, claiming he had killed 16 people. He promised to release weekly clues about where the bodies were hidden, and that viewers who solved his puzzles would eventually learn his identity. At first, people brushed it off as a stunt. But as more videos came out, the clues started to match real-life missing persons cases. Families desperate for answers began watching closely. He never named the victims, only dropping hints about their jobs or the way they disappeared. But soon, he made a bolder move. Catch Me Killer uploaded a video and posted its link on a website dedicated to Jennifer Cassie, a Florida woman who had gone missing in 2006. When her father clicked it, he heard the distorted voice say, "Maybe I can help." This new lead drew massive public attention, including the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Investigators obtained a court order to track the account, and with help from Google and YouTube, they traced the IP address to Gainesville, Georgia. The masked man was unmasked and identified as 27-year-old Andrew Haley. However, things quickly took an unexpected turn. Andrew admitted to making those videos, but it had all been a hoax. There were no bodies, no secrets to uncover, just an elaborate, cruel game that shattered the fragile hopes of grieving families. He insisted that it was not a crime because he didn't expect anyone to believe him. But the court wasn't having it. He had wasted government resources and toyed with people's emotions. Andrew Haley was charged with making false statements and tampering with evidence, and sentenced to 3 years. Daisy Brown. In July 2017, a strange YouTube channel called Daisy Brown appeared online. The very first upload was titled How I Feed Alan, but Alan wasn't human. In the video, Daisy carried a creature with bulging eyes and jagged teeth. She explained he was blind and could only digest sugar and water, so she pressed sugar tablets into his mouth and urged him to swallow. In the description, she introduced herself and begged viewers not to make fun of Alan. At first, people thought it was a joke, maybe a what-I'm stunt for attention. But with every new upload, the channel got stranger. Daisy began adding captions to her videos. If you watch without them, nothing seemed unusual. But the moment you turned them on, you were pulled into something darker. The second upload was a video of lemurs hugging at the zoo. But then a caption flickered across the screen, "The silence of loneliness." It was the very first hint that Daisy herself was isolated with Alan as her only friend. Over time, Daisy revealed more of her story. She claimed her father, a scientist, had created Alan and given him to her, but her father was gone. Now, when asked about the basement, she said he warned her never to go down there because it was full of mold. Because the basement's been sealed off ever since I was a little kid. I've never actually been down there. I've asked my dad about it a couple times, and he says that it's just there's black mold down there. And meanwhile, Alan began to change. He began to talk and draw. He even grew larger and more aggressive. Does it still hurt? In one video, Daisy cried because he had ripped her hair out. Her voice shook behind the camera as she ran her bloodied hand through the strands of hair on the floor. From then on, her fear became obvious. She wanted space from him, so she got a cat named Strawberry. But Alan wasn't happy about the new addition. In the next video, Daisy was outside, her legs smeared with dirt and her thighs marked with fresh bruises. She tried to distract herself, shifting the conversation away from Ellen's violent behavior. Instead, she rambled about her father's old parasite: apples, raspberries, lemons, and then strawberries. The words slipped out, and for a few 10 seconds, it was silence. She realized she had left Strawberry, her cat, alone with Alan. She ran back inside, but it was already too late. The next upload was simply titled "Strawberry is Gone," suggesting that Alan had killed the cat. At this point, viewers were hooked. Daisy's face was never shown, only her hands, her voice, and the shadows around her. The mystery made everything feel more unsettling. Finally, Daisy decided she couldn't take it anymore. In her final video, she packed a bag and tried to sneak out of the house, but Alan heard her. He confronted her, and the two struggled. The camera shook before showing blue liquid spreading across the floor, as though Alan had been killed. Daisy bolted from the house, breathless, running as far as she could. The final shot was shaky footage of her sitting in the bushes, pointing the camera at the sky. For months, theories spiraled in line. Some thought her father had returned. Others speculated that she might have taken her own life. But eventually, the truth surfaced. Daisy Brown wasn't real at all. It was a fictional web series created by Augsburg student Julia Dapper, who wanted to experiment with storytelling on YouTube. She later revealed that many of Daisy's emotions came from her own life experiences. The mystery song. In 1984, Darius, a teenager in Germany, recorded a song off the radio station NDR, but when his sister uploaded it to YouTube in 2007, it became the world's most mysterious song. It wasn't the only song he recorded, but it was the only one that was unknown. When Lydia, his sister, uploaded it online asking for identification, it birthed a decade-long search. For years, the clip circulated under various tentative names such as Like the Wind and Check It In. Check it out based on random guesses from the lyrics. In 2011, an extended version of the song was uploaded, but it still couldn't be identified. By 2019, music enthusiasts decided to dedicate time, effort, and resources to solving the mystery behind this song. They created a dedicated subreddit and YouTube channels, and Discord groups began to analyze every lyric and synth line. Soon volunteers began emailing radio archives and digitized cassettes. But aside from narrowing it down to German bands in the early 1980s, there was still no proof of its origins. In November 2024, researcher using the alias Marine1412 found a connection to a German band called Fex. To everyone's relief, members of the band confirmed it was hires with the official title Subways of Your Mind. After nearly 17 years, the song was re-released on Fex's album Skyscraper, giving it an official home after Iceberg's uncensored versions. Now, let's move to the next level, Level 3. Level 3, Portishead. About 10 years ago, Portishead fans got to relive the haunting Only You music video on YouTube. But instead of fan nostalgia, one mysterious user turned the comment section into a disturbing online diary. The video itself already feels unsettling. Originally released in 1998, it shows vocalist Beth Gibbons floating underwater with inverted footage and city backdrops fading in and out. Therefore, when it resurfaced on YouTube, fans recalled the chilling sensation it sent down their spines. But one account named Do What began posting strange fragmented comments and abstract phrases that seemed too deep to understand. However, it wasn't just what was written, but how it appeared. starting around 2018. 3 years after the YouTube upload, Do What began dropping thousands of comments on that single video. In one day, there could be over 100 posts of angry rants aimed at some unknown person or group. He or she usually hurled insults and made threats, but over time, the tone shifted toward cryptic warnings and references to personal suffering. Viewers scrolling through felt as though they were watching a public breakdown unfold over years. Soon the theories began. Some thought the account was a bot, but that seemed unlikely because Duet often replied to their own posts and even edited them. In these replies, the user claimed to be a woman living in a homeless shelter, receiving messages from a creature telling her to save humanity. Others believed she was a disgruntled songwriter demanding credit for Portishead's work, and some stretched even further, imagining her as an interdimensional being who could communicate across timelines. After thousands of messages, the Dude account was taken down, and the comment flood stopped. But not for long. Soon, other accounts appeared copying the same ranting tone as Do What. However, instead of posting hundreds of comments a day, they could only manage a few. Still, years later, one question lingers. Who was Do What? And what was the purpose of their messages? The Knife Nulls, at first glance. Austin and Brittany appear to be a young interracial couple building a wholesome Christian family and sharing their moments with the world. But Austin had a secret that could destroy everything they had built. Like most family channels, the Knife Nulls shared their everyday life with their children. Viewers began to see them as a symbol of positive energy and family openness. During the era of YouTube's family vlogging, their channel garnered thousands of loyal fans. But as years passed, the cracks began to show. On Christmas Day in 2015, while the family was celebrating, inappropriate videos of Austin were leaked on the internet. They spread quickly, and major mainstream media outlets broadcast the news, further fueling the fire. With nowhere to hide, Austin had no choice but to come clean. In a video, Austin explained that a year before, a girl sent him inappropriate videos of herself in social media. But instead of fleeing from temptation, he got into an online relationship with her. To make matters worse, the affair began when Brittany found out she was pregnant with their third child, and it lasted for 5 months. He maintained that they never met in person, but always shared inappropriate pictures and videos. In the video, the couple stated that as Christians, Jesus would forgive them no matter what they had done. The plan was to return to their normal lives and use the situation as an opportunity to spread the word of Christ. But they couldn't go back to normal. In fact, everything went downhill very fast. In July 2017, the couple announced that they were getting a divorce. Austin had cheated again. He said he kept having affairs because he was no longer happy in their relationship. His unfaithfulness stripped them of their position as Christian role models. At that point, no amount of therapy or counseling could undo the disaster. After the divorce, Brittany renamed the channel Brittany Space, where she shares her daily life with her children. Alan tutorials. Tutorial videos are not uncommon. But what happens when someone wants to teach you how to pick up a blue chair off the ground, or how to fill a tiny bin with dirt? Quite useless, but that's precisely what the Alan Tutorial YouTube channel was about. His videos didn't make much sense, but his soft tone made them funny, even absurd. If you can't get the chair to pick up, you could try again by just getting your hand on it and giving a pull. However, one incident changed the course of everything. In one video, someone knocked loudly on his door despite his pleas to let him finish recording. After a few minutes of Alan's meltdown, the video ended abruptly. And from then on, the videos grew stranger. It started to look like Alan was trapped in dangerous, worsening conditions. He began hiding in closets and often appeared scared of his surroundings. In one tutorial about installing an AC unit, Alan accidentally cut his hand with a screw, and instead of tending to the wound, he let it bleed and continued filming. In another video, he was talking about how to take a bunch of pills. Over time, his tone became less playful and more desperate. He destroyed his apartment, was eventually kicked out, and became homeless. But that didn't stop him. Instead of filming in his cluttered bedroom like before, he was suddenly recording from filthy empty rooms with boarded-up windows or walls that resembled a cell. The videos were no longer funny. They felt like a documentation of captivity. Soon, he shifted from making tutorials to drinking bizarre concoctions and filming his own hand. At one point, he began discussing politics and reporting the news. With each update, the room around him grew messier until it was completely filled with dirt. Eventually, Alan escaped through a dark hole in the floor and never posted again. Millions of viewers speculated his brother and his girlfriend may own the house he was staying in. They might have gotten tired of his situation and kicked him out, or perhaps he was suffering from mental instability, but in the end, none of that mattered. Later, it was revealed that Alan Tutorials was a performance project by comedian and filmmaker Alan Resnick. Frustrated with the flood, Offerly made videos on YouTube. He decided to create his own trashy channel with a dark twist featuring a troubled individual, slowly descending into madness. There was no captivity and no mental instability. Still, the videos forever carry the power to creep you out. Level 4. Harley Dilly. A boy left his level for home for school, but somewhere along the line, he vanished. He never made it talkless and he didn't return home. Harley Dilly enjoyed making gaming videos and light-hearted vlogs under the channel name Harley Dilly 2.0. But behind the screen, his life wasn't so simple. At home, Harley often argued with his parents. Sometimes after fights, he would stay at a friend's place until things cooled off. In December 2019, just before the holiday break, another argument broke out, this time over his broken phone, which his parents said they wouldn't be replacing. That morning, on the last day of school before Christmas, Harley left the house for school against his will. But this time, he wouldn't come back. At first, his parents thought he was avoiding them as he had before. However, when he didn't return the next day, they realized something was wrong and reported him missing. An investigation began quickly. Authorities searched the area, interviewed neighbors, and combed through leads. The only solid clue came from a surveillance camera that showed Harley walking in a maroon puffy jacket, gray sweatpants, black sneakers, and glasses. But that was it. No one knew where he went. For 3 weeks, the search dragged on with no answers. Then, Port Clinton police decided to start over and retrace his steps. Across the street from his home stood an old vacation house. Police had previously looked through its windows, but they decided to obtain the keys from the owners to recanvass the building. At first, it looked like any house under renovation, dusty, cluttered, and empty. But when they looked further, they found their first clue, Harley's maroon jacket. Soon after, they found his glasses. This discovery raised scary questions. Had Harley been held captive there? Was this the scene of a struggle? The truth turned out to be even more heartbreaking. On December 20th, instead of going to school, Harley had gone to the abandoned house, likely waiting for his mother to leave home. With no way inside, he climbed an antenna tower to the roof and spotted the chimney. Believing it would lead into the house, he slid in with his arms raised above his head. And it was only when he reached the end that he realized it wasn't a chimney connected to a fireplace, but a flue for a wood-burning stove. His jacket snagged, his arms were trapped, and there was no escape. While police and volunteers searched endlessly for 23 days, Harley had been just across the street, trapped in that vent, slowly suffocating. When they finally found his body in January 2020, the coroner ruled his death accidental with no signs of foul play. Telika Patrick. In 2013, a 30-year-old doctor recorded unsettling YouTube videos that felt like love letters to an invisible partner. A few days later, Hisker was found abandoned, but she was nowhere to be found. On December 5, 2013, Telika Patrick left her shift at Boers Medical Center in Kalamazoo and tried to check into a hotel. She was turned away because she didn't have money for the deposit. So, she took the hotel's complimentary shuttle back to work, and it would be the last time she was seen alive. Later that night, a driver reported a car swerving recklessly along Interstate 94. Police arrived to find Telika's gold Lexus abandoned in a ditch 100 miles away in Indiana. The tires were flat. Her wallet, phone, and ID were still inside, but Telika herself was gone. The sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. Moreover, before Telika vanished, she had confided in a friend that she believed someone was out to kill her. That paranoia explained her attempt to check into a hotel despite having her own apartment. When investigators looked deeper, her online world told a stranger story. On YouTube, she uploaded videos directed to an unseen lover. In them, she cooked dinner for two, whispered updates about her day, and affectantly called the invisible presence baby. Her family insisted she wasn't in a relationship, but her 5 Twitter accounts revealed the same pattern. Thousands of tweets addressed to no one, as if she were speaking to someone only she could feel. "How are you?" she'd ask. "Well, I felt you a little bit yesterday." Eventually, investigators found one tweet tagged to one user, American gospel singer Marvin Sapp. That discovery unraveled everything. Telica had become obsessed with him. She moved from California to Michigan to be closer to his church, sat in his congregation, and once even appeared uninvited at his home and spoke to his children. Quite disturbingly, she tweeted about everything. Disturbed by her escalating fixation, Marvin filed a personal protection order against her just months before she disappeared. But this was a dead end. The singer himself had no connection to her disappearance, and police confirmed he wasn't involved. The obsession explained her online behavior, but it didn't solve the mystery of what happened to her that night. Then in April 2014, her body was discovered in a lake less than a mile from where her car had been found. An autopsy revealed she drowned. Authorities suggested she might have jumped into the water in a paranoid state, believing she was in danger. But questions remained. The lake was so small that it was considered a pond by some. Search teams should have found her sooner if she had been there all along. Some believe she was killed elsewhere and dumped later. However, officially her death was ruled an accident. Level 5, Cantelmo Archives. Level 5 in 2019. A wealthy biochemist claimed he had cured himself of brain cancer with a hallucinogenic substance. A few months later, his body was discovered in a forest. Chris Cantelmo had spent 35 years in the pharmaceutical industry before moving online to spread wild claims. He said he was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2013, but cured himself by vaping a drug called dimethyltryptamine, DMT. Initially, his posts garnered little attention. But Chris was wealthy, so he began spending thousands of dollars on giveaways, slowly drawing people into his theories. Soon after, he founded an internet religion called Cantelmoism. This new religion was based solely on the belief that DMT had the potential to cure all diseases, including cancer and atheism. Chris called himself a messiah, preaching that schizophrenia should be embraced, and even denying established laws of physics like the second law of thermodynamics. He warned his followers off an apocalyptic war and convinced vulnerable people searching for cures to trust him. His bizarre ideologies began to attract so much attention that he gained thousands of followers from all over the world. Soon his religion developed into a pseudo-cult. However, this only worked for a short time. Behind the Messiah, a man was collapsing. In November 2019, 57-year-old Chris Cantelmo left a note for his friends stating that he was going out and instructing him not to let the dogs out. Hours later, he hiked into Thinglas National Forest and ended his life with a folding knife. His lifeless body was found on the hiking trail, now with no leader. Cantelmoism disintegrated almost immediately. Jess Nepal, an 18-year-old boy, vanished without a trace. Yet years later, videos and accounts continue to surface online under his name. In 2017, 18-year-old Jessipol was reported missing in Iowa. According to NAM US, his disappearance was classified as involuntary. Strangely for someone his age, Jesse had numerous aliases, including one Carlos Saim Nima, Darl Yamal Brown, and Ronaldo Alterio Colon. Even then, no one could say for sure what happened. For a while, he was just another name in the database of missing people. Then the internet noticed something strange. Shortly after his disappearance, numerous accounts were created under the name Nemapol across several social media platforms. The most disturbing aspect was that they all followed the same pattern. One account even claimed he was a 13-year-old singer and model on YouTube. The man in these videos was singing, dancing, and posting selfies, but he looked older, almost like a future version of the missing teenager. Some said Jess was alive using another name. Others argued someone was exploiting his identity. But soon the internet uncovered something even stranger. In 2018, a man named Pedro Namapol was arrested in San Antonio for uploading explicit content. Too many. Pedro looked disturbingly similar to the Jess who appeared in those strange online accounts. They shared the same last name and bore a striking resemblance to each other. Were they the same person? But the problem is there is no definitive link tying Jess to Pedro. To this day, Jesse Mopol remains officially missing, but the internet continues to debate whether he was ever truly gone. Level 6. Intelsat 708. It was supposed to carry a satellite in orbit. Instead, the rocket veered off course and exploded in a fireball-caught camera. On February 15, 1996, engineers, foreigners, and locals gathered at the Xichang Satellite Launch Center to witness the launch of the US-built Intelsat 708. As a scheduled takeoff time approached, the satellite was loaded into a Chinese Long March 3B rocket. Some of the engineers even climbed onto the roof to get a better view of liftoff, which had been slightly delayed so that the rocket could fly at 3 a.m., a number the Chinese considered lucky. Unfortunately, this time it wasn't. Seconds after liftoff, everything went horribly wrong. Instead of rising vertical for 9 seconds and reaching several thousand feet before arcing east, the rocket traveled horizontally just a few feet off the ground. After 22 seconds of flight, the 426-ton vehicle crashed into a hillside and plunged into a nearby town. On impact, it exploded into a massive fireball, leveling buildings and causing chaos in the surrounding area. The terrifying moment was captured by one of the engineers watching from the roof. Although the Chinese government tried to downplay the aftermath, leaked videos and eyewitness accounts told a different story. By dawn, entire families and communities had been wiped out. Yet, Chinese officials claimed only a handful of casualties. The footage was smuggled out and eventually found its way to YouTube, where it remains one of the most disturbing videos tied to space exploration. Level 7. Robert Camone. When you level 7 click on a rap battle video on YouTube, you brace yourself for jabs and subtle roasting. Definitely not a man confessing to burying a woman in the dirt. But before that night at Uptown Los Angeles bar, 27-year-old Robert Camone had gotten into another argument with his girlfriend, Amanda Custer. During the 2 years they were together, Amanda had filed several domestic violence allegations against him. In February 2019, she reported that he had created over 100 phone numbers to harass her and had shown up uninvited at her home and even broken a double-pane window with a hatchet. She got a restraining order against him, but that was not enough to protect her. Just 2 months later in April, Robert had beat her and threatened her with a taser. When she finally escaped his grip and fled, hatched her down and turned on an elderly man who tried to intervene. Still, fewest was yet to come. On July 29, 2019, Amanda Custer's neighbors called the authorities to report another incident of domestic violence. But this time, they saw Robert placing Amanda, who seemed unconscious or injured, in the trunk of his car. When the police arrived and found blood, they tried to intervene, but Robert sped off in his car. The police pursued him briefly, but they were unable to catch him immediately. Hours later, he was found in downtown Los Angeles asleep in the back seat of his car, and inside, they found traces of blood and a digging tool. The police arrested Robert on charges of domestic violence, but they would soon be hit with the most disturbing revelation. The day after the arrest, a video began to circulation line. In the video, Robert was in a downtown Los Angeles bar looking straight into the camera during a rap battle and boasting about how he beat and buried his girl. This creepy video shifted the course of the whole case. The case escalated to a homicide investigation and he was formally charged. Amanda's body has not been found. Yet to this day, he has refused to reveal what happened to her. Apollo Qualoi. What happens when the appointed Son of God and the self-proclaimed owner of the universe is wanted by the FBI? Apollo Qualoi is a Filipino pastor and theologian of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, a restorationist church he founded in the Philippines. From the start, he claimed to receive direct orders from God and said he possessed divine powers. Quibeloy once said he stopped the 2019 Cotabato earthquake with his words alone, but chose not to stop Typhoon Kimori that same year because critics doubted him. Therefore, when the CO-19 variant Omicron spread, he claimed it was God's punishment for criticizing his appointed son. His ministry established a global empire comprising TV networks, media companies, real estate, charities, and numerous assets, as well as millions of followers who believed that salvation was only possible through him. His influence also extended to politics, most notably with former mayor and President Rodrigo Duterte. But behind religious spectacle were disturbing allegations. Members who raised the most funds in the Philippines were sent to the U.S. through fake visa applications and sham marriages to church followers in the U.S. In the last 20 years, his administration conducted 80 to fake marriages just to keep his members illegally. In the United States, once there, their passports were confiscated. They were forced to solicit donations full-time. The money was advertised as going to non-profit organizations such as the Children's Joy Foundation. But in reality, it funded Quibeloy's lavish lifestyle. Moreover, there were quota requirements that had to be met, and failure to do so often resulted in severe punishments. These included isolation in a walled room for 3 to 5 days, denial of food and water, and in one instance, forcing a woman to shave her head bald and wear an orange shirt with Son of Satan written on the back. Female members were reported being forced into night duty, where Quibeloy would force himself on them. If they refused, they were threatened with eternal damnation. There were also female pastors that were referred to as pastorals. They had to give up their personal lives and take turns tending to Quibeloy and his needs. In 2022, the FBI placed them on its most wanted list for human trafficking. Still, he continued to post sermons on his YouTube channel. It operated freely until 2023, when some ordinary gamers exposed his FBI listing, and YouTube finally banned him. Moreover, in the Philippines, his political protection had begun to run out. Senate investigations into trafficking and abuse summoned him to testify, but he repeatedly refused. He alleged that U.S. and Philippine officials, including President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and First Lady Arnette Marcos, had conspired to assassinate him. For months, he hid inside his compound in Vo City, shielded by loyal followers who saw any move against him as an attack on God. They guarded his gate with weapons, barricades, and vehicles. This meant that any attempt to arrest him by the authorities would risk innocent people's safety. Finally, in August 2024, after a prolonged manhunt, Apollo Quibeloy was arrested in his compound in Davao. He faces trials in the Philippines for his crimes. While the extradition requests from the U.S. remain pending, the Daily Capper. On September 7, 2012, a teenage girl uploaded a silent YouTube video. She didn't speak a single word. Instead, she held up cards describing her torment from cyberbullying, self-harm, and thoughts. 1 month later, Amanda Todd was dead. That haunting upload was the tragic climax of years of manipulation that began in the early days of live streaming. Back then, live streaming platforms like YouTube and Blog TV had almost no restrictions, making them a playground for predators. Amanda, who had just started experimenting with chatting online, sat in the corner of her room while strangers complimented her looks. Among them was a user who called himself Tyler Boo. He pressured Amanda into inappropriate acts while others cheered her on. What she didn't know was that he had secretly taken screenshots of everything. Soon, he began blackmailing her, threatening to send the images to her family and friends unless she complied. At first, Amanda gave in, but when she stopped responding, the threats became reality. The explicit images spread through her school and community, leaving her shamed, bullied, and socially isolated. Even when she moved homes, the torment followed her. Therefore, Amanda's mental health deteriorated. She battled severe depression, drinking, and self-harm. The YouTube video was her last desperate cry for help, but when it went unanswered, she took her own life. Her death shocked Canada and drew global attention. However, when investigators followed the trail, they stumbled upon something even darker, an online subculture known as the capping community. Cappers were predators who caressed victims into inappropriate acts on webcam. then captured screenshots known as caps. They used these caps for blackmail, extortion, or simply traded them like collectibles. The community was so brazen that it even ran a newsletter called the Daily Capper, complete with a YouTube show. They shared updates on new victims, bragged about their exploits, and even handed out awards at the end of the year for categories such as Hero of the Year, Campsite of the Year, and Disturbingly Blackmailer of the Year. In 2010, that title went to Cody 1206, one of the people circulating Amanda's images. But when authorities arrested him, they realized he wasn't the main perpetrator. They dug deeper, and they traced Amanda's tormentor to the Netherlands. In 2014, Dutch police arrested for 4-year-old Aden Kopen. His devices contained overwhelming evidence of messages, images, and videos tying him to Amanda Todd. He was tried in the Netherlands for harassing and extorting 30 for victims, sentenced to prison there, and later extradited to Canada. In 2022, a Canadian court convicted Aden Kopen for the crimes tied specifically to Amanda Todd and sentenced him to 13 years in prison to be served after his Dutch sentence. As for the Daily Capper, it suddenly went quiet, and no one has heard from it since. Good riddance. You can now watch the exclusive Level 8 for free on our